Yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is Max. I'm the CEO and founder of Fraugster. So, Fraugster is a German-Israeli payment security company with the goal to create a fraud-free world. So, today we are working with some of the largest payment companies, as well as with merchants, managing for them billions of dollars every year. And before I start talking about Fraugster, I would like to start with giving you a little snapshot on the fraud market and on the risk market, because I think risk is obvious and fraud is real. Because on average, an online merchant is losing around 1.5% of their annual revenue to fraud, which are around 47 billion euros every year losses. And this is pretty tough, especially when you look at some markets where the fraud is growing twice as fast as the e-commerce market. And probably, I'm not sure what kind of businesses you are doing, but if you are an e-commerce merchant, you're probably familiar with that problem. And yes, there are a lot of solutions on the market how you can solve the problem. But most of the solutions that are available are really based on outdated technologies, which means you have a real big problem in terms of accuracy. Because the accuracy is creating a much bigger problem than the fraud is. Because of this accuracy problem, you're blocking way too many good customers. And so you can say on average, online merchants are blocking around 20% of all incoming transactions in the fear of fraud. And just to stress this number, this means you're losing 20% of your revenue because you have an outdated technology. And then when we zoom in into Europe, you probably have seen this regulation, PSD2. It's all around, everyone is talking about, and some of you probably think, okay, hey, this is the solution that solves my problem. But at the end, the opposite is the thing, because for all of you who've never heard about PSD2, it is an European regulation or strong customer authentication, which means it's a new European regulatory requirement with the goal to reduce fraud and make online payments more secure. The question, for who you make the online payments more secure? Because today, when you look just on the card payment side, you as a merchant are liable for all the fraud cases. And with the PSD2, you have a liability shift towards the card issuer, and they take over the liability. So that's the theory. The reality is that PSD2 is applying just for a certain amount of transaction. And I don't want to go so much into detail and bore you with regulation topics, but a transaction has to fulfill always two topics. Yeah? Number one, the card holder or the card issuer, which is the bank, must be based in Europe, plus the acquirer, so companies like Wirecard, Ingenico, Worldline, must be also based in Europe. If this is not the case, what happens? Nothing. Because the EU really wants just to protect their citizens. And what we will see is, on the one hand, that online merchants will face the same threat, just with a different face, because criminals are not getting unemployed just because of regulation. So what they will do is, when you look here on that side, so for example, they will just take a non-EU card and commit fraud. So this means for non-EU transactions, you will see much more pressure in the future. And on the other hand, because SCA means you need a two-factor authentication in the way that you have 3D Secure. So you're probably familiar with this thing when you click on buy and then a pop-up pops up and you have to type in your password. And the problem with that is that you create friction in the checkout process. And once you create friction in the checkout process, you will have automatically a very high drop-off rate. And we see this already today, because 3D Secure is nothing new, right? So it's existing since decades. And this is our experience. So on the one hand, you have to deal with regulation. On the other hand, you have on card payments a heavy conversion rate problem. And but the good thing is, and that's the reason why you have to prepare yourself in terms of this regulation, which is applying at the end of this year, that you have to work with exemptions for your European card flow. On the one hand, this is the good news: all transactions that are 30 euros or below, no SCA, which is good, so no drop-off rates. And then it really depends with which payment company you're working. So if your payment company has a good risk management service, it's great for you because you can file for exemptions. For example, if the payment company, and it doesn't matter how good you are in terms of risk, for example, they have on their portfolio level a risk rate of 0.13%, you can accept all transactions of 100 euros or below, for example, without any SCA. And this helps. So what I just can recommend to you is really challenge your payment company. What is your strategy in terms of PSD2? And so this is a European regulation, but now let's zoom in into the German market, because we are here in Berlin, Germany, and the German market is even more complex because, as you know, card payments is just the third most popular payment method. So the German loves things like PayPal, payment up an invoice, credit card, as I said, but then also SEPA, and all payment methods have a different risk characteristic. So if you're a German merchant, you have to be really good in order to manage your fraud. And when we just look at the German market, on the one hand, as we all know, it's a big market. So German e-commerce retailers are creating a revenue of 73 billion euros every year. But on the other hand, as Germany, it is by its nature, we have a lot of cross-border transactions, so around 50%. But because you have this high cross-border transactions and this diverse payment mix in the industry, it's very surprising that Germany is not really investing into fraud prevention solutions. Also that the problems are obvious, but especially when you compare it to the UK, US, and that's the reason why it's also not a big surprise that Germany has much more fraud than other countries. Yeah, so it's 33% more than the rest of the EU. So, having said that, now the question for you is, how do you protect your revenue? And I showed you also the methodologies that are available on the market, but as shown, they're not really good in order to solve your problem. And as also the name in my speech is, it's AI. And for us, AI is the answer, right? Because when we started with building Fraugster in 2014, for us it was crystal clear that we have to invest in technology. And because with AI, you can solve three problems at once. So on the one hand, of course, because you have a much higher accuracy, you can protect your business. That's the base of everything. Then on the other hand, it's very scalable, right? So you can offer with such a solution things like same-day delivery, so really to increase your customer satisfaction. And last but not least, you can create more revenue out of your business, especially you have to tackle this 20% that I've shown at the beginning of my slides. So how do we do AI? Yeah? At the end, as I said, we started in 2014 and then we decided to invest at first heavily into building a proprietary technology platform where the core of the technology is our artificial intelligence engine. And around that, we built a lot of heavy tech stuff. And overall, this entire R&D phase took us 3 years just developing the platform. And to fulfill our goal, which is to combine the best of both worlds. So means the human-like accuracy with the machine scalability. So how does it work? Think about you, you're a merchant, yeah? A customer comes to your website and makes a purchase. Yeah? And our customers are sending us the transaction data in real time. So on average, we receive the data points that you collect in the checkout process. So normally we receive between 20 and 60 data points. So a data point is, for example, name, billing, shipping address, so regular e-commerce data. And but here's the main problem. Because based on these 20 to 60 data points, you have to make a decision if you want to accept this transaction or you want to decline it. And so the first step is when we receive this transaction, we do a heavy data enrichment. This means for every transaction, we enrich with another 2,500 data points to get more data insights. And I come in a sec on that, what we really do with that. And based on this intelligence, we send everything to our AI engine, where we do the calculation and decide then if a transaction is good or bad. So talking about data enrichment, so it's a very high-level example. I'm just using 3 data points, but just that you get a better understanding what you can do with data and why it's important for you and your business to really have an eye on your data quality. So this is my co-founder Chen. Born and raised in Israel, but based in Berlin. So now let's assume Chen is flying to his parents to Israel to make some vacations. And during this time, he has a little bit free time and he wants to buy a new laptop. So what he's doing is he's searching from Israel. So he has an Israeli IP address and looks for a great deal. And by accident, he finds a very great deal on a UK merchant site. So just by these 3 data points, the transaction looks very suspicious because think about it, you have a random guy you've never seen in your shop with a German credit card, an Israeli IP address, and he wants to shop something on a UK merchant site. Quite suspicious. I'm not sure if you would accept this transaction or not. And the good thing is for you, most of the merchants are not accepting those transactions, and that's the reason why you have those high false positive numbers. And as I said, probably he gets declined. But it's bad for you because you lose 2,000 euros in revenue, right? So how do we do it? So same data points. We take also Chen as an example. But I get from you, for example, the name. Chen is currently in Israel. He's writing his name in Hebrew, but I don't want to go into the Hebrew language thing. But what we want to find out, for example, is in which country is this name common? Yeah, so his first name is Chen, last name Samir. Chen can be Chinese, can be Israeli. It's pretty vague, but Samir has a very high probability that he's an Israeli. So what we do here in this example, we do a nationality check, and the result is very high probability that he's an Israeli. Very simple data point, right? Let's go to a more sophisticated data point, email address, a very powerful data point that we can use. And for email addresses, I think we have around 100 extra data points. And in this example, what we want to see is, for example, if the name, the shortcut, the nickname is also in the email address. So why is it important? Because when you look at your fraud patterns, very often you see that fraudsters are using random email addresses like asdf@gmail.com or 1234@gmail.com. Why? Because fraudsters at the end, it sounds funny, have also a kind of an ROI. So they cannot create for every fraud attack a new profile. Yeah? And that's the reason why they have random email addresses. And what I want to see here in this example is, okay, as I said, if the name is also in the email address, but now we have a big problem because Chen is in Israel and he's writing his name in Hebrew. But the problem in Israel is that you have to switch the keywords to Latin letters to type in your email address. So if you make a manual review and you have an analyst who can speak both languages, it's simple, right? But how does the software want to do it? What we do in this example is, for example, we translate every language into sounds and we do a metaphone check. And the result is, okay, we have a match because we see here on the left side, Chen, and then here Samir, and it's a match. Last example, IP address, as we've seen in the example before, also very powerful. What we want to see in this example is to which organization belongs this IP address. So we do an IP connection check. And why is it important? Because just think about, you're in Berlin, everyone can enter, for example, a Starbucks coffee shop and has internet access. But if you see, for example, in your data, oh, actually, this IP address is from a corporate let's say, for example, from BMW. Now think about how many people are working at BMW. So you can reduce the amount of people who have access to such an internet hotspot to a minimum. And what we see in this case is that Chen is using currently a hotel Wi-Fi. And what it tells us now, it's already much clearer, because now you have an Israeli who lives in Berlin because you have a German credit card, a German shipping address, and he's probably on vacation and spends his time in Israel. And what we will do, obviously, we will accept this transaction, and the merchant has 2,000 euros more. As I said, very high-level example, but I think it gives you a good understanding what we mean with data enrichment. And yeah, last step, we decide if it's a good or bad transaction. And what's also interesting is when you look at this process flow, the entire decision takes us less than 15 milliseconds end to end. So why is real time very important for us? Because think about, you have friction in your checkout process. You have automatically a drop-off rate. And so for us, one of the key elements is that the customers, or your customers, they don't see us, they don't feel us, so that they can really complete their purchase. So another important aspect when you work with AI, that you don't have a black box. Because many AI solutions that you can get, you don't know why the AI decided if it was a good transaction or a bad transaction. And this is another core principle of our R&D, because we want to make it as transparent as possible to you. And we do it in the sense that we give to our customers for every transaction multiple descriptions why we accept or decline a transaction, which is also important, for example, for your customer success, that you can really explain if you have good performance or a bad performance. So this is a technology. So what can you do with this technology, especially when you have such an accuracy? Today we offer to the market 4 products. 2 products that are self-managed services, where you are in the lead in order to manage your risk. So we have an entry-level product which is called Flame. It's a pure rule engine, which is a good start in order to be to care about risk. If you want to have a more sophisticated solution, it's Fire, right? So you have our AI power in the way that you get a score from us, which is already quite powerful. And on top, we give you a lot of strategy tools like our rule engine, manual review tools, etc., in order that you can really build your own risk strategy to be successful in the e-com market. If you don't want to deal with risk management, it's fine, because I agree it's not your core business. Also, you have to deal with that. For those kind of clients, we have 2 outsourced products. So the first one is fraud-free. With fraud-free, we are managing the entire risk for you. This means we give you a guarantee for every transaction. So if we don't hit the fraudulent transactions, we pay the difference within 14 days, and you don't have to worry about that. And our flagship product is not just that we give you a chargeback guarantee. No, actually, we guarantee also revenue uplift, because this is the core principle of Fraugster, that we are not believe in risk reduction, but more in maximization of the revenues. So how does it work? Think about you have currently in your checkout process an acceptance rate of 80%. Yeah? So we analyze your business, and then we say, for example, okay, hey, we can give you 10% more revenue, and we guarantee that. If we don't hit our promise, we pay the difference by year end. So I think this is a very strong statement. And also that you can be on the safe side. Both products, fraud-free as well as fraud-free plus, are fully reinsured by the world's largest reinsurer, Munich Re. So let me give you some use cases, what you can do. The first one is with Fire, which is the AI risk management suite. And one of our customers, and maybe you work with them, is RatePay. RatePay is a payment upon invoice company based in Berlin, number 2 in the payment upon invoice market. And when they decided to go with Fraugster, they had 3 main KPIs. A, of course, they wanted to have a better performance. Second, they wanted to be more scalable. And third, they want to reduce their operational costs. And the result that they got from FIRE is very impressive, because on the one hand, after a couple of months, they could reduce the fraud rate by 2x, which resulted that 300,000 German citizens are more protected than before. And here, this is exactly the combination that I talked about, is they use the AI score with their internal risk team in order to build powerful real-time rules. And this is a very good case that you understand that AI is not replacing everyone, right? So you can really also work with AI in order to be more successful. Fraud-free Plus, as shown before, you don't have to do anything. You just have to sign a contract with us and we manage everything. So just to remind you, no risk at all, more revenue. And this is an example from a leading European fashion merchant. And when we started our conversation with the merchant, he just wanted to reduce his risk cost significantly. And by analyzing his business, we understood, okay, hey, actually, we can give you more than just reducing your risk cost. We can give you more revenue, and this is guaranteed. So just to give you some more facts and figures on that, so the merchant is making around 100 million in annual revenue, and just FYI, so we are working also with much smaller businesses. And currently they're using a solution that is called or before we started with them, they used a solution that is called Retail Decision. And the cost of fraud, and that was the main reason when we started with this customer, was around 750K. And the main goal for them was to reduce that at least by 20%. And as I said before, when we analyzed this business, we saw, okay, hey, your approval rate can be also improved, because he's just accepting 90% of his transactions. So, and there were room to improve. So we turned on Fraud-free Plus. On the one hand, you get a fixed price, so you can really plan with that risk cost during the year. So you don't have to worry about any fraud peaks that affects your bottom line. And in this example, we could reduce, we made him an offer that he could reduce his risk cost by 33%, which are savings of around 250,000 euros, which is already not bad, just by replacing a risk solution, right? But then we looked also at his approval rate, and as I said, they had around 90% approval rate. And over the last 12 months, we gave them a significant revenue increase, in the sense that we promised to him 1.8%, but actually we gave him 2.4%, which means it's more than 2.4 million euros more in revenue. And combining these two, we give the customer a net gain of 2.6 million euros. And I think this is very important, because today in many companies, risk management is a cost center. But you can turn risk management into a profit center that delivers value to your marketing department, to your sales department. And that's the power that we give you, and again, fully guaranteed by Munich Re. So, boost your performance, look into your numbers, and if you say, okay, hey, yeah, I would like to improve myself, so how can you start? So at the end, it's fairly simple. As I said, our team of risk specialists are more than happy to analyze together with you your business. Once we get data, we need around 5 days, and then we will present this to you afterwards, and those analyses are free of charge, so don't hesitate to contact us. And then it's always a question, I think, with external vendors. Oh, there's a lot of integration works, and at the end we have two possibilities to work with customers. On the one hand, you can have our REST API to integrate it by yourself. Normally it takes between or maximum up to 4 weeks, depends how fast your dev team is. But the other thing, and this is the highway, if you're working with one of our customers, the payment companies, you don't have any integration at all. So it's really just one click and you can go live within 24 hours. So also here you save a lot of hassle in terms of integration. And these are some of the customers we're working with. So maybe some of you are working with them: Ingenico, Worldline, Six, Netixis, RatePay, and many others. And yeah, I can just say, if you're interested in that, behind you there is the Fraugster booth and the Fraugster team. So please talk to us. And thank you so much. Maybe we have time for one or two questions if there are any. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the presentation. I have a question on data, because you mentioned that customers are sharing private data with you. So how is GDPR going to affect your business?
I mean, it's a regulation that we fulfill since day one, because before that we had the German data protection law in place, right? And then also, I think it's very important, we are not a data acquirer, we are just a data processor, because the customer already gives this data to the payment company, to you, and so that we fulfill all the regulations. Yeah, we are certificated, so it's not an issue. Obviously, we have to deal with that, like everyone in this room, but we are fully certificated.
Hey, Max. Hey, hello. Hey, good morning, Max.
Good morning.
For Fraugster, do you require historical data to start making decisions?
Not necessarily. I mean, the baseline of that is, if you can share with us historical data, great. But as I said, I mean, we processed last year around $40 billion US dollars all around the globe. So you can start immediately, and it's not necessary if this is, for example, a problem to pull out the data out of your system. So we can start immediately.